So that makes him very happy. And great. So welcome everybody. Steve Cady here at Bowling Green State University and with All Things Change podcast webinar series and Nexus for Change. So we have a lot of partners. We have our doctoral program in organization development and change, which is a passion of mine. And we have many of our students here and people that partner with us and teach and engage with our program. So I'm so glad to see you all here. And in the course of our journey, we are learning about thought leadership. And thought leadership is where we create knowledge and disseminate knowledge that is of service to people in the world. And when we're able to create knowledge and disseminate knowledge, either print, media, mixed media, peer-reviewed journals to publications to popular press, as we begin to share that with the world based on what we know and what we're passionate about, we begin to create a thought leader brand around our work. And when we create a thought leader brand around our work, people see us as a person to bring in to help us with that work. And there's two important points there. One is when you write something, you're making a difference while you sleep. I call it passive difference making, like passive income. When someone reads your article, or watches your video, or watches this video later, Brian, you're helping someone while you're off doing something else, right? So it's passive difference. It's a ripple effect of content, disseminating content. And that's the essence of thought leadership. The second piece is the passion part, which is we should focus on developing our thought leadership around the things that we care about that are important to us, the difference we want to see in the world, the hope we want to bring to the world, and the change we want to help and see in the world. And, if we are writing about the thing we're passionate about and we create a brand around that and we get recognized for that, people begin to call us to help them with that. And I think of it like being a typecast actor, movie actor or actress, or being typecast and being happy about it because those are the roles you like to play in. I think of it like if you have, I always say this, if you have anybody here have a pickup truck? You know what it's like when you have a pickup truck? What do your friends say?
You end up with way more friends than you ever thought you had.
Exactly, because all your friends want you to use your pickup truck to help them move something, right? If you have a sports car, are they going to call you to move something? No. But if you have a sports car and they need to get to the hospital real quick, they might call you to drive them and get them there fast or somewhere else fast. So when we build a brand, a thought leader brand around what we care about, we get contacted and called and brought in on the things that we care about. So we get to live more of our passion, more of our calling, and we get more opportunities to do it. Hi, Nicole. Welcome. Good to see you. So the point is, and for those of you that are just joining, welcome. We're so glad you're here. I'm talking about thought leadership and the notion of passive difference making through creating knowledge and disseminating knowledge. When we write and create knowledge, it makes a difference while we sleep, so to speak. It also typecasts us. It also creates a brand around what we do, and it creates credibility. It creates recognition for what we do. LinkedIn has some reports they've done on thought leadership showing that people are more likely to be hired, their companies are more likely to have business done with them when they have a thought leadership brand that they're creating, when they're publishing and writing and creating knowledge around the thing that they are an expert in, that they want to be known for, that relates to what products and services they're offering. So with all that being said, when you get to do more of what you love, think about this. When you get to do more of what you love with the people you love working with, making a living doing what you love, would you not say that that is going to give you more opportunities to experience joy in doing what you love? And that's what the notion of professional joy comes from. Is thought leadership gives us a more opportunity to experience more joy in our profession. That's what our doctoral program is about. And this is an important segue into what we're talking about today, because Brian is one of our doctoral students. He's in our 5th cohort. We're very proud and honored to have him in our program. And he brings a wealth of knowledge. And hey, Yesham, hey there. So good to see you. And he brings this wealth of knowledge. And Brian is going to be talking today about something that's really important to building our thought leadership and how we do it in this world of immense knowledge that's being created and being cataloged and so forth. And how do people choose even what to pick? How do they choose your articles and your videos and your things to watch? Why pick your stuff? And then when you pick it, how do you keep track of it? And how do you manage it? And how do you make sense about all of it? And how do you keep your head on straight? And like, I love gathering stuff. If I could keep every book and every article, I'd probably, I wouldn't have a place, I would not have any place to sleep. Right. So technology is really giving us some freedom there. So Brian, with all of that, would you take a minute to share with us your story of finding the doctoral program? Why now? Why BGSU's Doctorate in Organizational Development Change? Why now? And then tell us a little bit about that story, how it brought you into the program, but then how you, as you got into the program, how you discovered Obsidian.
I'd be more than happy to, and thank you for that introduction, Steve. I'm Brian. Professionally speaking, I've spent the last 20 years running data centers, internet data centers. So, sort of the backbone of our modern day civilization. It sounds a little conflated to say that, but that's just the honest to God truth. It's funny how much the world has changed. We've all seen it. Most of us have lived through that change from the 80s onward. Remember, before internet was a thing, you remember when AOL first came out and CompuServe and Prodigy, and you had to, have a modem, and we all remember those unique tones. And, as that grew and grew and grew, to Dr. Katie's point, knowledge really started, becoming condensed into central repositories for anyone to freely search, as long as you knew how to do it and with the proper terms and all that good stuff. So when you look at where we are now in the last 20 years, all that change has been predicated off what my industry does. My industry's only been around roughly 25 years, though. And because of that, a lot of growth, a lot of truly brilliant people started the data center space, and it's their life's work. And a lot of them are still involved. But as the industry changes and evolves, we need to make sure that we're making those changes in an appropriate way. And I say all that to sort of answer the first portion of Dr. Katie's question of why BGSU's organizational development and change program for me, and why now. And that's because it's the data center space is on that cusp of a massive change, and we all see it in the news over the last year already. How many of y'all heard about artificial intelligence, Chat GPT, and how it's all being integrated into what seems like every facet of our lives?
Right.
That all that is driven by the critical infrastructure that my teams and people and other teams similar to my teams across the globe are doing. So long way of saying the change that the industry is going to go through, whether or not people are ready for it, whether or not people are going to be doing it in a well methodical and thought out fashion versus just letting it happen. So I was really intrigued when I decided to go on my doctoral journey. I knew I wanted to do something with organizations, and I knew I wanted to do something with leadership. And spending a year just looking at what all was out there, and I found BGSU's doctoral program. And as soon as I read the first paragraph of what ODNC was, I knew that was it, right? So, went through the application process, and the program was gracious enough to accept me. Boy, it's been a ride in the last 9 months.
Right. So you got in, and so then you have all this whole deluge of stuff, and you're keeping track of things. Something happened where, did you just naturally start looking for something like Obsidian? Did you try a few things out? When did you decide you had to find a solution? What was the challenge, the upfront challenge you had that created the conditions for you to need something that made you start even looking for a solution?
So, such a great question. I, in my academic career, have never been the best student. because much like you mentioned, Dr. Katie, if I could spend all day just finding articles and reading books and finding things and just stashing them away like a squirrel getting ready for winter, I'd probably be one of the happiest people in the world. And because of having all those different interests and things like that, I needed to find a way to organize myself. And years ago, I realized the only way I could really do that is to have a workflow for my academic mindset. Right. So I had to actually give myself those borders that says, okay, I'm going to spend my first block of time finding the first 10 things that might be applicable to what I'm looking for, and then moving forward and forward and forward. Um, 15 years ago, that was pen and paper. 10 years ago, that was maybe Lotus 123, or those old versions of word processors. And 5 years ago, as technology changes, now we're in the cloud. For me, I needed something that was going to let me be efficient with my time, but also let me be creative and create what, frankly, is called a second brain electronically, that I could reference and know that I can use a key term or go touch a tag or something like that in a software application and just follow those pathways. And it lets me be more efficient with my thought process. That's what I was looking for. And frankly, my handwriting's not the best, and I don't know that there's enough color sticky notes in the world to put on enough binders. So one of our cohort mates during our first residency was talking about some of the same things I was being challenged with, and he mentioned Obsidian, and I just was curious, so I went and explored it, and I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And realizing that, and we'll probably end up touching upon this later on in the conversation, realizing that Obsidian acts as the central point to my workflow now is what allows me to go tackle something and do some research, read an article, annotate it, put it into Obsidian, tag it up, and then all of a sudden that information is there in a wide variety of ways from me.
Very cool. And so as you look at Obsidian, is it for only the advanced person? Who is it for?
Obsidian is for someone who is not afraid of computers, or someone who's not afraid of being uncomfortable for a short amount of time. It is not as easy as a lot of the apps that we use on our phones now, where it's just touch, click, drag. It is Obsidian is a shell. And that shell allows it to be a database, a word processor. It allows you to do some low-level JavaScript programming if that's your bag. That's not me. That's outside of my wheelhouse, but that optionality is there if you decide to go into some really advanced stuff. So the long answer to a very good question is Obsidian can be as easy or as hard as you decide for it to be.
Give me one example, if you could, if we do user stories, if we do some user stories, could you just give me the simple user story, like the person who wants to use the basics, not really sophisticated? Could you tell me a story of that person who could use it? What would it look like? What would be an example of someone using it simply for them to make their life easier?
Okay. So let's say that there's an imaginary cohort mate in cohort 5. We just had someone join the program, and they're a basic to maybe intermediate level computer user. They know Microsoft Office Suite. They know how to navigate the internet. That person coming into a program, never having done true academic research before, I believe if I sat down with them within the first, giving me 45 minutes to an hour of just one-on-one time of getting them familiar with the software, getting them set up with the proper workflow, we could have them off to the races to a 60% effectiveness within that first hour.
What kinds of things would they be doing at their level?
At their level, it would literally be, we're going to go and utilize some online resources to do some research. So, you have a research question in your head. Maybe you're doing a literature review for Dr. Park's class, right? Around a construct, right? So go into, there's a wide variety of places to go and start looking for ambiguity and figuring out what that is. Find those first 5 articles that have maybe the most citations, or maybe, they're previously done literature reviews. Download them, put them into another software package called Zotero, and From there, it's just reading and annotating just like you would with a highlighter or anything else.
Obsidian is reading and annotating.
No, sir. Zotero is reading and annotating.
Okay, right. So you got,
So
right.
maybe if it's okay if I share my screen.
Yeah. And Kim Fleshman had a question. I don't know.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I have an IT background, and I'm checking out what you're talking about with Obsidian. So
Mhm.
will you be using this in your dissertation? Because this looks really cool about how it can develop, visual graphs for your items that you can link together.
Yeah,
Yes,
this is great. I think he's going to answer it right here, right here with this picture. Just take the story and tell us a story that flows through this. Like you just keep your story going, but start at the beginning here and just share with us kind of the story. This is great.
definitely. So, Kim, I'm using it now, and I plan on using this workflow throughout the entirety of the program and beyond. So I hope to use it for the construction of my dissertation. So to continue the story, right, this is me in Dr. Park's class doing my first ever mini literature review on ambiguity and what ambiguity is, or the tolerance of ambiguity. I utilized, to do the investigative work, to locate the resources, I utilized 3 separate applications or online portals, right? The Web of Science, most of y'all are probably familiar with.
Say a little bit about it. So if you could just give
Oh,
for some people may not know, just give a little bit of a sense of what it is and where they might find it as you tell.
sure. So the Web of Science, in my mind, is the best online correlation to what we might have all done in high school, going to the public library with the card catalog, Dewey Decimal System, the whole 9 yards. You go, you find your topic, you click on it, and you're able to see an abstract of the article and determine if that's something that interests you. And you can also, it has some really neat bits of information around number of citations, the number of times that article's been cited, things of that nature.
Yeah. So it's a search engine. It's a research search engine.
Correct. That's a
Yeah. And you have lots of sub searches you can do or filters you can do and keywords, and you can
Yep.
look at the title only, look at the author, you could look at abstracts, you can look at a broad topic, you can pick all kinds of, but you're finding articles, right?
So, you know what? We can spend 2 minutes going through it, because there's actually a neat trick that I realized in doing this, right? So you go to advanced search. So like Dr. Katie mentioned, you can search a wide variety of things in the Web of Science. Here's all the subtopics you can search for, or the sub filters. The thing is, Web of Science actually utilizes Boolean search logic. Now, not very many people in this world know Boolean search logic to the degree that would be most useful. But we all have an executive assistant that knows Boolean search logic better than anyone else, right? That's our friend ChatGPT. So if you were to come in here and say into ChatGPT, and this is the ChatGPT 3.5, and you were to come in here and go create and I apologize, y'all, whenever I have someone watch me type, my typing skills go downhill really, really quickly.
We have amnesty for typing.
All right, that's awesome. Create a search in Web of Science for articles relating to, we'll say, tolerance of ambiguity.
Need a CE.
Oh, written before 1990.
You need to check before and fix it. It'll correct that before.
It will. And then ChatGPT being ChatGPT, of course, you have to sort of guide it along its path. Here we go. So, and it explains what it's doing. You just copy the code there, and you can chuck it into your search.
Now you're probably scaring a few people right now. I just want you to know.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Only because what you just did, it was very quick. What you did is you asked it to give you the Boolean search command. You copied that command. ChatGPT gave you the command. Then you copied that command and you took it back over to the Web of Science
yes, sir.
and you typed it into, where did you put it? You pasted it in the query preview.
Yes, sir. So
Right.
out of all that, it comes down with 9 articles.
Right.
That's
Right.
not bad.
So
Yeah.
when you do this, you know, and you try and do it step by step without having that fine-tuned Boolean search. The first time I did it, it was like roughly 35,000 articles. And then I had to, you know, sort of fumble my way through and get it pared down.
Right.
But so that's sort of that.
The Web of Science works differently too. I want people to know that. So if you go back to the Web of Science piece here, just show people that they don't have to do the Boolean search. Go back. If you can just go back to the Web of Science for them, go back to that page you were at and just go up to the advanced search. They could just type in all fields and you could type over there tolerance for ambiguity. You could type that in, ambiguity tolerance, and do that. And you're going to get you get 1,391. You didn't get 9. You could specify before 1990. You could do that. So click on specify before 1990. So you can see all. Say,
You have to go in an individual. If we want before 1990, we would be better off selecting.
right.
And
So
then-
that's the challenge, right? You select all of them, then you select everything. But the Boolean search just makes all this simple. It just created the simple search for you. But you could do that. You could click on all that, then hit enter, and it would probably pull up something similar.
Correct.
Right? So you can do it through the advanced search, clicking on the options, and you just learn how to do it. So once you do the Web of Science, is what I'm hearing you say, you start finding really great articles. What's the next step?
Sure.
And from your diagram, your
Yeah.
workflow.
My apologies as I deal with I don't do much in Zoom, and I'm used to Teams and
All good.
the
It's all good.
bar.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how to hide the bar in Zoom so that I could actually access my driving me nuts. There we go. All right. So Web of Science, another one is Consensus. Consensus is actually an AI-driven academic research piece.
So where are you showing us right now? Because you might be are you showing us the Web of Science right now?
Okay, then let me reshare.
Yeah. So what you do is if you click advanced share, screen share, click advanced, then click share a portion of screen. Once you share a portion, whatever you put in that window, so it'll show up. So because otherwise it freezes on one screen. And if you switch screens, it stays on the old screen. So just do portion of screen and then you just stretch out the green box to what you want it to fit in.
I've actually never done that before. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So can
So-
y'all see the Web of Science still?
Yeah, we see that. Mhm.
Okay.
Can you take us back to the flow chart real quick?
I am attempting to.
Yeah.
We're gonna do, bear with me, y'all.
There you go. Perfect. So in your drawing, you just talked about Web of Science. And then you went down, you said there's Consensus, Research Rabbit, and you used those 3 to help you locate a bunch of resources, right?
Yes, sir.
So Consensus was another one and Research Rabbit. Can you talk a little bit about those 2?
Yes, sir. So those are both AI-driven research portals, and they have different ways of handling it. Research Rabbit is one that I started using, and for me personally, and I have made a faux pas by not saying that this workflow and all the tools that I utilize, we all work differently, right? So we have to find the tools that work better for us. Research Rabbit, as powerful of a tool it is, for me, it just didn't click as well as it could have, and it did with some of my other classmates. So when I discovered Consensus, on the other hand, this has become my go-to for just asking that initial question. And what you do is you just go in here and it's just a normal search bar, right? What is ambiguity tolerance? And what it does is utilizing AI, the black box of AI for consensus, it then comes in and gives you basically the top 5 articles that it thinks you're asking for. And from there, you actually just start reading these little 1 or 2 line pieces and determine if that's, you know what, that is what I'm looking for. So we're going to go in here, click here, and you can see it's been cited 400 and it has 419 sites. It's been cited 419 times. 33 of those have been considered influential, and so on and so forth. And so, you know, it's just another way of looking for research. And it's one that, for my brain and the way that I think and work, works better than Research Rabbit. And if I am going too fast for people, please let me know. So from Research Rabbit, or I'm sorry, from Consensus, we downloaded article.
This is really great. I just want you to know that I'm signing up for Consensus. I have not used Consensus.
Oh,
So
it's
I'm checking it out right now.
it has quickly become one of my true favorites. And the neat part is if you click that full text right here, and if you can see here's the proxy from BGSU. If via BGSU's logins we have access to these, then you'll be able to download it. However, what I have found is going to be, to me, one of the biggest reasons to utilize Zotero, which we'll touch upon next if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, did you show a little bit on Research Rabbit at all for those? Did you show that? I was just looking at the screen here. So did you
I did not.
Show them Research Rabbit so they see what that is and how that works. I think you had it under your AI.
And Research Rabbit is a lot of the same. See, I don't even have my login saved because I don't really use it much.
Yeah. So what did you not like about it?
The way that what I found was Research Rabbit produced about 95% of the same articles in the same pattern as Web of Science.
Okay.
Right? So for me, if I'm going to go and take the effort to utilize a whole different tool, I wanted to do something completely different or add value in some way, shape, or form.
To the Web of Science.
Right.
To me, the Web of Science is your one, and then Consensus is your second one.
Correct.
And Research Rabbit doesn't add enough value, different value than those two.
For my workflow, that is 100% accurate.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
I do want to highly encourage anyone, though, do your own exploration of all these tools. That's the really neat part. Something you see or discover might make Research Rabbit your number one. I always put that out there. There's a reason why, you know, there's all these different options. It's because it just works better for some people than others. So, all right. So let's say that this article by Robert Norton, measure of ambiguity tolerance, is right in our wheelhouse. It's what we want. We then go to Zotero, which we're going to pause and say, let's go back and look at the workflow. We notice our investigation piece was with Web of Science, Consensus, Research Rabbit. We've located our resources. That block of work is done. We're now moving on to the next phase in our workflow. And that next phase includes things like collecting the resources, ingesting and digesting those resources, and then annotating them to make them robust enough for us to actually determine if we need to use it or not.
Or find them later.
Exactly.
Right, because the annotation is really kind of queuing on the key summary in a way that helps you to go back and find stuff and quickly remember this article's about this or that.
It definitely can, for sure.
Yeah.
So I have that all in my consumption of information section. And so let's pop over to Zotero.
You need to
And
open the screen up a bit more.
that's
Hey, Kim, you see the article there?
Yep. So that was actually my use case for some of the stuff I was going to walk us through for the Zotero Obsidian functionality. So the really neat part about Zotero though is, right, since we're going to be doing something with ambiguity, let's go in here. You have, so what Zotero is basically your own academic library. Dr. Katie, like you said at the beginning of our conversation, if you could, you'd have boxes and boxes and boxes of things. And I'm gonna, retell a story that was told to us during our first residency together ever. That when y'all moved houses from, to your current location from where you were, there was a story told that you had literal boxes and boxes of articles that you'd kept throughout the years. And that was a trial to sort of figure out how you're going to store them, where they're going to go, and things like that.
It was a box that filled up one of those 10 feet by 15 feet storage facilities, and it filled it up to my chest high of boxes of articles that I kept on all the different topics, all the different things I was doing for my dissertation, to all my research. And if I wanted to find one of those articles,
good luck.
I mean, good luck. I could find them because I had the boxes in the right kind of general groupings, but I couldn't put the same article in two places.
Right.
Right. Because if an article is on both ambiguity and decision making and stress,
yes,
right? It's touched those three things. I couldn't put it in the three boxes. I would have to pick one of them and just remember, oh, it's mostly on this. I would go find it, and so forth.
100%. Zotero, in my opinion, fixes all of that. So Zotero, what it does is it just lets you categorize and create your own libraries. As you can see here, you got your main library, and I did that mini literature review on ambiguity tolerance for Dr. Park, and collaborative change is the class that we're all in right now. So, I have my sub libraries under there. I'm in the data center space, right? So onwards and onwards. But here's the thing, anyone who's done any amount of research for a week or for years understands that sometimes even getting the article itself after you have identified it can really be a chore. Zotero has helped with that tremendously, not 100%, but tremendously. So let's see if this works. So you see this right here, this is the magic wand. And when you hover over it, you're adding the items by an identifier. You click there and you enter either the ISBN, the DOI. I don't know what any of these other identifiers are, but I imagine that there are other unique identifiers. And you add that in. So what we're going to do is we'll go over here and we're going to get the DOI for this article.
And that's the DOI there at the end of that.
Yes, sir. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah. No, I'm just making sure.
So the DOI is always a hyperlink, and you can always tell it's the DOI because it says DOI-TAC.org. The easy proxy BGSU TAC edu, that is what you're being proxied through. And then everything after the backslash is your actual DOI identifier.
Can you take the whole thing, or do you have to take after the edu?
You have to take after the edu backslash.
Gotcha. Okay.
You take that.
PubMed, PMID is PubMed.
Oh, okay.
The National Library of Medicine.
Take that DOI and you pop it right in here. Hit enter. Let's see what happens.
It just did it over on the right.
Did it. So you see right here is the new one. And you can see right here, it's updated the DOI and it's automatically downloaded the article for me. That's
cool. Now, if I'm in Web of Science or in there and I see the article, is there a way, and I'm doing it through my browser and I put in the Zotero add-on, what do you call it when you add it on to a browser? Oh, the extension. Extension. Does it automatically do that? If I click Zotero, would it automatically, because I can be reading an article in Web of Science and I'm in my browser, logged in. Yep. And I'm in the Web of Science, or I'm in Consensus and I see the article and I click, I want that article. I click Zotero, it pulls it in automatically. Does it do all of that?
Not necessarily. When you're using the browser extension, what it's doing is you're actually going external of Zotero to the internet, and then that extension is externally trying to reference another piece of metadata that might be somewhere in the back end. So it's hit or miss. What I've found for me that works best, because I get really frustrated if I'm trying to do something I expect a piece of technology to do and it doesn't do it. I have found that doing the DOI more often than not directly into Zotero is the best way to do that action.
And that's pretty quick.
Mhm.
It's pretty quick to do it. Once you get used to it, you go, oh, I like it. Copy, Zotero, drop, go, drop, go,
Exactly.
drop, go. But
Exactly.
you could click, like I'm reading something and I go, oh, I want to keep that. I don't have a
Definitely.
lot of time.
Definitely.
It's a magazine article. It's a website. It's a something, because Zotero will keep track of anything.
So
right?
here, and you see, I actually have the extension disabled right now, just because I have a lot of extensions going on. But if that was the case, you would actually go in there and let's see if we can actually just sniff. Yep, right here. Save to Zotero. You save it to your ambiguity library, and it does the same thing too for this particular article.
Right. So it's hit or miss, but that's just a quick way. And then you go back and fix it later, right?
Yes,
If
sir.
it didn't do it, like you're really busy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, cool.
Since we already had one in there, we're going to delete the multiples. So from there, right, we ingest it, digest it, and annotate it. For me, annotation, when I use the word annotation, I mean highlight. So let's go back to.
Can you go back a little bit? I'm slowing you down because you have some really good stuff. To go back to the flow chart. Let's just make sure we're on the same page. You're collecting the resources, and that's the point at which you are. Where are you putting stuff into Zotero? Is that, and you're putting the DOI, is that the ingestion or the collection?
That's going to be the collection activity for me.
Okay, so you did all that, the article's in. What does ingestion and digestion mean?
Sure. So ingestion is me, I'm just going to read through the article, not with any intention of trying to, actually look at everything. The way I work is I like to do a quick skim just to sort of get my mind right and primed for the actual digestion of the information. That lets me orientate myself to the basically the structure of the article.
Gotcha.
And then I'll go back again and actually sit down with my cup of coffee or my cup of tea if it's at night, and actually start reading, line by line with the intention of trying to.
And that's digesting.
Exactly.
So you could collect a whole bunch of resources, get them all in, then later you're coming back and ingesting and digesting. You might do some ingesting in order to know what category to put it in quickly, but that's about it. And then you might go back and quickly scan them a little bit more. Then you're digesting the ones that you find really you need to dive into, because you can't read all these articles.
Exactly.
You can't digest all of them, but then you get to the annotation. Help us understand how you get to annotation, particularly when you're collecting articles you might want to look at later, but you're also collecting ones that you want to dive into, and you've gotten through ingesting, and that's enough for now in order to come back. Can you talk a little bit how you balance that?
Sure. And what you just described, Dr. Katie, is my weekdays versus my weekends. I spend like an hour or two every night when I'm not doing other things, just collecting all the resources and ingesting them. On the weekends, when I sit down and actually do that digestion and the annotation. And for me, that annotation is literally, if we go here. Sure, this article looks familiar to some.
Yep.
So for me, the annotation is when I go through and actually highlight the things that to me are important in this article. Now, here's where you have a school of Zotero and a school of Obsidian separate. In Zotero, you can actually do all types of tagging and all this stuff on your own. What I discovered was when I first started doing all my tagging in Zotero, what was starting to frustrate me was there was no clear-cut way to say, okay, I want to do, I want to look at everything from this particular tag. And it wouldn't actually give me just a clear-cut one look view of, okay, here's all the articles that tag exists in. That was part of the other reason I started looking for other things. So let's hop over here. And this is the first look at Obsidian for most of y'all. And I realized I set up a little test vault, but I forgot one important piece. So we're going to go over to a real vault real quick.
Right, so as you're doing that, so what you're saying is some of your ingestion and digestion and annotating is starting to emerge in Obsidian.
Yes, sir.
It's not happening in Zotero. So you have, while you have the flow up there, it really is, those boxes are starting to move now down into Obsidian.
Correct.
Okay.
So what you see right here on my screen in this Obsidian view, you have right here are all the 8 different colors of highlighter that's available in Zotero match here. So everything you see that's highlighted will go with blue. For me, is background information or prerequisites. If it's green highlighted here, it's assumptions, questions, goals, problems, so on and so forth. So, and that's actually really, really key for what we're going to be talking about from the Zotero Obsidian perspective. So I have now spent time digesting and annotating via highlights this article, and this was a lot of really good information in here that fell into a bunch of different categories, so on and so forth. Took a little snippet of this chart. You see it has a yellow outline on it now. It's because I actually highlighted that. And then to your point, to keep us on that same roadmap, Dr. Katie, for me, jumping down to the second brain activity of the summarization, storing, and constructing, that's where Obsidian plays its part. So we'll jump over here. And this is Obsidian. Obsidian is a very bare bones, no nonsense application. It's not the prettiest application in the world, but what it lacks in appearance, it makes up for in functionality from my perspective. So what's really neat is you can come in here and we're going to do it just for the purposes of showing the example.
So like, before you jump in, so we see Zotero on the left. So we're right now in the Obsidian application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And it looks like this, looks a little bit like DOS, almost, for those who remember, right?
Yep.
So you didn't show us how you got into it, but Zotero is linked to Obsidian, correct? It's
It is.
you linked it to. How do you show us how do you link the two?
So that might almost be a whole separate conversation.
Okay. All right.
You know, and for anyone who's interested in delving more into this, more than happy to, you know,
We can do a follow-up to this and go into more detail. So let's use the Julia Childs, for those that might remember her, where we go to the cake is baked, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to go, so you've connected Zoteros. That's why I want people to see the Zotero up there. It's linked into Obsidian.
It is.
And then you are able to now to open up. And now when you open up and look there, you're seeing the highlights that you made in Zotero.
Correct. That's all.
Now you can do something with those highlights and those other things. That's what you're showing us now. Okay.
Yes.
All
So
right, go ahead.
you see these sections right here that these are broken up into. Everything here is driven off that highlighter color from Zotero. I know that seems really weird, but it's such a great, clean way for me to be able to say, if I highlight something in yellow, I know for a fact it's going to be considered an interesting point or fact, and I can find it here. But let's take a half step back. How do we even get all this information into Obsidian from Zotero without going into technical linking on the back end? If we can hit the magical I believe button and just imagine that y'all already understand that back end process and you've done the thing, you come in here and I set up a hotkey. For me, it's a Control-Z. And once you hit that, you're actually going to see this format bar pop up. And let's go in here and look for.
And that is Z for Zotero.
That is correct. So let's go in here and say, I've been reading a whole, you know what? We were doing some reading on the collaborative arts. We hit enter on that, fetch it. And now everything here exists. So what you have here is all the information on the article itself. You have, if there was an abstract in the article, it would strip it out and put it here. you have the APA 7 citation here, and then you go down and you have all your reading notes. So once again, all the things I highlighted in that article, there's 2 sections in here that I thought were history or background information. I had some questions. I have a lot of questions of the author of this article, T.O. And, you know, some examples and case studies, so on and so forth. Hopefully,
Brian,
yes, ma'am.
may I ask a question? See, I see the page numbers are coming up.
Mhm.
Does Obsidian automatically populate the page numbers from Zotero, so you
It-
don't have to enter that yourself, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank
And
you.
you can actually click on that hyperlink and it'll actually carry you back to that same section.
Wow.
And
Brian,
here,
we're going to have to do another session just on this portion here.
Mhm.
I like what I'm seeing. I'm not tracking on the sequence. I followed all the way up to getting to Zotero and getting things into Zotero.
Yep.
And then and then highlighting in Zotero.
Yep,
And what you're saying is you do recommend highlighting in Zotero,
100%.
right? Then Obsidian takes your highlights and helps you do some different things with it. Is there a way you could give us just 3 to 5 minutes on some of those things that you can do? Because that's all the time we have for today. Maybe we come back and build on, we just kind of fast forward, tell people watch the video if you want. We've done this, now we're got them in Zotero. Let's take another hour and go through what do you do with Obsidian? Because I think that would be helpful to people to do it that way and not go too fast.
Okay. I will do my level best to keep it at a reasonable pace.
Yeah.
Let me talk about how I handle it, because that's, to me, at least the best way I can frame it. When I'm done reading an article in Zotero and I am ready to do my work in Obsidian, the first thing I do is I create a file that you see here, right? So that's exactly what we just did with that hotkey, where it pulled in the metadata and everything from Zotero into Obsidian. That's my first step. The second thing I do is I create an outline of the article manually, right? Just so this document right here becomes my 1-pager. If nothing else, if I were to lose everything else from a research perspective, and I had this 1-page document, I would be able to go back and find everything and have an understanding of why I even considered that article important. Right, much to your example about all the boxes you had, Dr. Katie, instead of having, you know, a 10-foot by 10-foot space full of boxes, you could fit the representation of all those boxes into a binder. If you had just done something like this, if you had the capability to do something like this back in the day.
So yeah, so this is great. So could you go back to your flow chart for us? Because we're going to come back to this. So I'm just giving people a highlight of what will be next. So now what you got. So over on the, you've summarized and what's happening is you're summarizing. Are you summarizing in Zotero or summarizing in Obsidian?
Summarizing in Obsidian. My work
So
in
now you start
Zotero,
summarizing. Go ahead.
my work in Zotero stops after the highlight.
Right. So then you start summarizing and storing and construct
I should
is
be constructing, sorry.
constructing. Okay. And you start using ChatGPT. Just tell us high level, because we'll go into detail. Where are you using ChatGPT and Gemini to help you with the storing or constructing? What are you doing there? Tell us a little bit about that.
So that ChatGPT is how I create this outline. Well, let's go into ChatGPT. Our good friends over there. So in ChatGPT,
Do you ever try Perplexity by chance?
I have. I haven't delved into it deeply enough to have an opinion.
Good. I like it better. It seems to write in a more and create in a more straightforward way, not a lot of hyperbole and fancy words and stuff like that, which I don't like.
Understood.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT, for those of y'all who haven't played around with it a bunch or recently, it actually has a whole different, a bunch of different options now. If you go to PDF Insight And actually you can drag and drop the PDF of the entire article in here and ask it to please summarize.
Oh my God.
This is what it pops out with.
And then you take and copy and paste that in
Copy
to your
and paste that.
summary.
That's it.
And you can ask it to summarize it so how is this maybe different than an abstract?
Oh, a lot more.
I personally am not a fan of abstracts. To me, they don't give you enough information on what that article is. If I'm going to
You
sit
need
down,
a little bit more. This looks
I
like
could-
longer, right? This looks
Yeah.
like a lot longer than that. Could you say, do it in half the length?
oh, definitely.
A
Definitely.
little bit longer than an abstract, but a little bit less than a lot to read.
100%.
Could
I
you
mean-
have it do it in bullets for you?
Yeah, definitely.
So you could ask, hey, put this in bullet form. Summarize this in bullet form.
How about this? So I did this in class with during our last residency. So you sort of prime the pump by uploading the article.
Right.
And it just starts spitting out the summary a little bit for you.
Mhm.
Wow.
And for this article, this wasn't as useful for this article because, like you just mentioned, Dr. Katie, a lot of other articles, they use some words that, and sentence structure that it's almost like reading, Chaucer or something like that. You have to think about the sentence for 10 minutes to really understand it. Y'all's writing on this article was a lot cleaner and a lot easier for me to understand. But when you take an article written in the 50s or the 60s and dump it into here and the summary you get out, it's a game changer for me.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
here's that. And then you can also say, and you write in 3 sentences. And it's going to take a little bit because remember, it's actually
Or you could say, summarize it in 5 bullets.
exactly. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to the flow chart because we gotta start wrapping up. So this is really great. So go back to the flow chart. And I hear Dave Fearon.
I feel very, very, very old. I
Yes, this is something
aged
else.
5 years just watching what Brian's sharing.
So you're using ChatGPT now. Just tell us, what does Gemini do? Don't show us. And then
So Gemini is just the Google version of ChatGPT. Like any other AI GPT solution, you're going to have the black box magic, right, of any AI after it's been, taught and everything like that. It's going to be different because each person is different. I know
Gotcha.
that might freak some people out, me comparing, AI to people, but because of the training of ChatGPT is different than the training in Gemini, the output of those 2 different AI bots is going to be vastly different.
Well, essentially, and I have an article that's I think it'll be coming out pretty soon on looking at the AI imperative, as I call it, which is that AI is going to take low-level hanging fruit thinking that human beings are primarily doing right now and free us to start using higher order thinking and free us for that. But we're going to have to get used to moving into using our prefrontal cortex.
Yep.
The research shows, it's kind of interesting, that people that don't use it because we're in work that really gets us at low-level thinking in our organizations and rote types of work and things like that, actually the brain shrinks over like a 15, 20-year period. And that you can grow your brain. You can grow it. You can get the prefrontal cortex regrowing and get it, the pre-neural network and that metaplasticity going. But this is an opportunity for us to begin to start working our executive function is what it's called, the prefrontal cortex, and start using that to really use these tools in ways that doesn't diminish the role of us. It frees us to actually use our brain in ways because it's doing a lot of the low hanging fruit thinking for us. So so tell me, what is Gemini again? And then I want to hear what you say about Finalize. What's Gemini again?
So Gemini is just Google's version of ChatGPT. That's all it is.
Okay, it's Gemini is summarizing that, right? And
Exactly.
I like Perplexity, and there's a whole host of different ones out there.
Exactly.
Then you move over to Finalize. What are you doing in Finalize?
So finalizing, I actually do all my document. I type up all my even for our discussion board posts. I have them in Obsidian. I type them up in there. I export it over to Word so I can make it look pretty. That's it.
Right,
Word is just a formatting to make sure that my citations are on point.
Right.
and all the headers and whatnot.
Right. So Obsidian, so let's wrap up, but we know that Obsidian can do this kind of stuff. It also does things, thematic analysis. What are some of the other things that it does? Thematic analysis, what else does it do?
Oh my gosh. It can really assist with thematic analysis. It can really assist with tagging, organizing. You can actually create
Charts and graphs?
charts and graphs. So if you look here, and I did this just on, in preparation for this call, but every time you add an art, the really cool part about Obsidian is it's always running. So if we were to create another, start just downloading stuff from Zotero, this would start filling up with, do you consider a primary source, a secondary source? What's the top?
Awesome. Good.
As soon as you click there, it actually starts, dragging you all the way back all around.
Citations, all that kind of good stuff. So this is really great, Brian. So let's do this. Let's call today, first edition. Okay. All right. We'll have a second edition of this particular focused podcast webinar. We'll send it out to everybody that was here today, as well as to others, invite people, and we'll ask them to read it and look at watch the first portion so that we can jump right in kind of where we picked up and do the second half, bottom half, and really kind of walk through that linkage. Thank you so much, Brian. This was awesome.
I mean, if anyone and Dr. Katie, I'm more than happy to spend a minute or two answering a question if I can. I know.
Yeah. What we can do is let's go ahead. We can go ahead and wrap up and say goodbye, and then we can stay up for a couple questions. But we really want to go ahead and wrap up. So everybody, thank you, Carl, for coming.
Absolutely.
If you have an appreciation message, send it to Brian. Like, what are you taking away? What did you learn? Let's use the chat for that. Brian, Carl, did you want to say something?
So it was good for me to hear a presentation that was this useful, on AI, because I think that many of us are ahead of this, in quotation marks, and we need to back up a bit, because it appears as if we are. I said this a few years back in a report I did for the Grubb Institute, that we may be creating a virtual Tower of Babel. And I've been looking at some information on communications, because one of the things that I can't get away from is that. So how long has communication been a serious problem in organizations and businesses? 70+%, and it's 86+%. And so, yeah. So this, this inspires
Carl. I love you, Carl. I love what you're talking about. This is awesome. Lisa is our producer. So Lisa, can you get me and Carl connected? Carl, let's do edition 3 titled The Tower of Babel. All right. And let's come to the next one, Carl, and let's ingest all of this, and let's do a third one reflecting on this. And let's you and I do that with Brian, maybe a third one to reflect on it. But Lisa will follow up with you. We've got your contact information. I'd love to talk with you more. I love what you're sharing.
I will make an effort to do that. I've got a lot of stuff crawling around me these days. But let's be in touch. We will be in touch.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it work, because it doesn't require any preparation. It's just like show up and let's roll with it, right? So it's not a lot. We can make it really convenient for you. I like what your thinking is, and I think your brain would be really helpful to other people. So let's get what your wisdom and expertise would be helpful. So let's get that out there.
Thank you for that.
So
Great.
Everybody, thank you today. Thank you, Lisa.
Have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yep. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.
Take care, all.